Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, hello, and welcome. I'm Susanna DeBaca. I'm the president of Business Publications Corporation, which is the parent company of the Business Record, and it is a pleasure to welcome you here today. 90 Ideas in 90 Minutes is one of our favorite events here at the Business Record, and it is certainly one of my favorites. This is one of those events that mixes business with inspiration and maybe a little humor. And since all of us in the business world right now are still trying to figure out where we work, how we work, maybe even why we work, we could all use some inspiration. Raise your hand if you could use a little bit of inspiration. Yes, okay. You have come to the right place. So what we said this year, as always, is if we're looking for inspiration, why not turn to some of the most brilliant, successful, creative, and visionary leaders and peers right here in Des Moines, as we always do with this event. So today we have an amazing panel of the region's most forward-thinking leaders from both the public and the private sector, from all walks of life, assembled by our stellar Business Record editorial team. Let's get a round of applause for our stellar Business Record editorial team. Thank you. The variety of experiences and thought from this group is outstanding. You are going to hear from top leaders in healthcare, agriculture, education, technology, the nonprofit world, the arts, food, personal care, beauty. We hope that you are going to come away with a few nuggets that propel your thinking, that get your heart beating, and that motivate you to be the best and most authentic version of yourself. And why we think that will help you to create a stronger community and a more vibrant world. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what we're here for? So as you see in the program, in the beautiful booklet that you have, we have listed Chris Konetsky, our group publisher, and Emily Barsky, who is the editor of the Business Record, as my co-moderators tonight. Well, Chris Konetsky, who is the consummate communicator, apparently communicated too much at a conference over the weekend, and he has lost his voice. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a switcheroo, but that doesn't faze us. So we're going to be calling Jason Swanson. Many of you know Jason. He's the Vice President of Operations, up from the bullpen. That's a little baseball. You know, anybody who was watching the home run stuff going on this weekend? We're calling an audible here. He's going to introduce the sponsors. But when we asked Jason if he would pitch it for us, he said he was happy to jump in, but then he sort of mentioned something about some walk-up music. So Jason, come on up. Okay, here we go.
That's a lot longer than I thought it was. Oh, there's a sheet that fell down. That might be important. All right, so I'm Jason Swanson. I'm Vice President of Business Publications. Normally you see me at 40 under 40, but pinch hitting and coming out of the bullpen for Chris today. And I get to introduce our sponsors. So our presenting sponsor tonight is Denton's Davis Brown. I wasn't kidding about it being far, really. Before we get started, I am proud to introduce our presenting sponsor, Denton Davis Brown. Founded in 1929, Denton's Davis Brown grew despite the Great Depression and has continued its growth through other periods of significant economic disruption and social and generational change. Today, with 75 lawyers serving clients in the greater Des Moines region, Dentons Davis Brown's lawyers offer practical, useful legal advice to help clients achieve their business goals. Known for their academic excellence, creativity, integrity, and motivation, their lawyers have been recognized by Best Lawyers, Super Lawyers, Chambers USA, and as the best law firm in Des Moines for 15 consecutive years. Here to represent Dentons Davis Brown is John Patella, president and shareholder.
Thank you, Jason, for that introduction. A slight correction, we are now the best law firm in Des Moines for 17 consecutive years. So want to congratulate our team at Dentons Davis Brown for that award. I want to say thank you. Thank you to the Business Record, Susanna and team. We want to say thank you to the speakers and sponsors. At Dentons, we have a saying that the smartest person in the room is the room, right? And so we want to thank the Business Record for all the work they do with what we like to call knowledgeware. And we want to thank the panelists for coming here today to share their knowledge with us. So no pressure. The smartest person in the room is the room. But today, the smartest people are at the head of the room. And we're looking forward to hear what you have to say. 90 Ideas in 90 Minutes is the perfect event for Dentons Davis Brown. First, we bill by the hour. So it's great to know that we'll be done in 90 minutes and our lawyers can get back to serving clients, which is what they love to do. Second, Dentons is really an idea, or rather it's two ideas. And so the first idea is that everyone needs a lawyer who's in and of the community. And as Jason mentioned, we've been in and of the community for nearly 100 years now. We continue to be staffed by excellent Iowa lawyers who know how to get a deal done in Des Moines, who know how to solve a problem in Des Moines, who know how to help a client grow, protect, operate, and finance their business in Des Moines. But the other part of that idea is that you also need a global law firm. And so as Iowa changes, as the world changes, we think it's important that your law firm be able to deliver solutions, services, and solve problems, not just in your backyard, but anywhere in the world where you need help. And so we are happy again to be a presenting sponsor of 90 Ideas in 90 Minutes. Thank you. We look forward to hearing what, all the ideas that you've got. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce our supporting sponsor, which is Bank Iowa. Many of you may have heard of Bank Iowa, but they aren't your typical bank story. In fact, when Bank Iowa founders first got together more than a half century ago in Clarinda, Iowa, it wasn't because they wanted to create a bank. They were starting an aviation company. But it was from that entrepreneurial ambition, smart business leadership that one of Iowa's most successful banks would eventually flourish. Today, they're one of the largest family-owned community banks in the state. Here to make some remarks on their behalf, and before we get to Josh Fleming, Vice President of Marketing, I saw his name on here, and years ago, and some of you may have been there, he came up with a brilliant idea at 40 Under 40, and it was way before its time. Think roll-on deodorant, but roll-on butter. See, let it sink in. Anyway, Josh Fleming.
Hello, my name is Josh Fleming. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Bank Iowa. Now, I don't want you to be too worried about that. I'm not nearly as fancy as that title sounds, but being a middle-aged ginger with an expired membership at Lifetime Fitness and a fancy title does have some advantages, like getting to speak to you folks today, and thank you for this opportunity. Unfortunately, some people call us Bank of Iowa. Let me assure you, it is Bank Iowa. There is no of. However, when folks do call us Bank of Iowa, I like to quote the great singer Tina Turner and say, "What's of got to do with it?" Bank Iowa is proud to be a co-sponsor of this event, and we were told we had 3 minutes to speak today. So we're going to be kind of like the opening act, if you will, for the people you actually came to hear to listen to. My first inclination was to do something cute, like 3 ideas in 3 minutes. But I've already used my first minute, so that's out. So I'm going to give you one idea. I'd like you to imagine your front yard, maybe not the brown scorched earth it was this summer, but perhaps when your yard was at its very best. From a distance, you see nothing but green. You get a little closer and you see multiple colors of green, lights, darks, fluorescence. Closer still, and there are some yellow and brown colors. Now you're lying face down on your beautiful yard, your eyes a couple of inches from the ground. There are ants and worms, there's dirt. There's an entire world happening that you never even knew about because on the surface it looked, well, just green. So my idea for you is to look beyond the surface. Now this idea will do wonders for your relationships with the people you work with your family, with your friends. And so to make my 3 minutes with you count, I'd like to have you look beyond the surface with how you look at Bank Iowa. On the surface, Bank Iowa is probably a bank you've heard of. You may think, don't they have 3 locations in the Des Moines Metro? Or aren't they in that big building on Jordan Creek Parkway that looks a lot like Noah's Ark? All of this would be accurate. But looking beyond the surface reveals that Bank Iowa is one of the leading independent ag banks and the second largest family-owned bank in the state. Looking beyond the surface, you'll find that Bank Iowa has over $1.8 billion in assets with a legal lending limit of $27 million. Look beyond the surface and you'll find 26 Bank Iowa locations throughout the state, 285 team members who donate over 12,000 hours of their time every year to make Iowa communities better places to call home. Look beyond the surface and you'll find Bank Iowa is uniquely positioned to help make it happen for our clients, the communities we serve, and our culture. Thanks for listening and for looking beyond the surface, and to close and to keep our friends in compliance happy, Bank Iowa member FDIC equal housing lender.
Okay, we have just under 90 minutes left, and you already have several ideas underway, including roll-on butter and who knows what else. So our very talented editor, Emily Barsky, is going to be moderating tonight's event. We want this to be quick and fast-paced so that you can hear as many ideas as possible, and so that you can get a chance to ask the panelists your questions at the end, hopefully. So, quickly, here's the format. We're going to call the speakers up one at a time. They will each spend their 5 minutes talking about their own ideas. And I will ask everybody to hold their questions and comments because around 6:15 or 6:30, when all the speakers have finished, then we'll open up the floor to questions of the audience if we have time. But in order to do that, we have a very strict schedule to follow. So each of the 9 speakers will have 5 minutes and 5 minutes only to speak. A theme is happening here. The speakers might address all of their 10 ideas that you can read about in the lovely document, or maybe just a few of them. But at the end of the 5 minutes, a timer will beep. They have a timer. And our events team will wave the stop sign, and their time will be up. Well, as you know, there's always a risk at any event if you give somebody a mic and a time limit. Well, sometimes they'll follow the rules and sometimes they won't. It's not a Zoom call, so we can't just have technical difficulties and put people on mute. And we don't like cutting you off during the middle of award-winning speeches that I know are going to be filled with wisdom. So this year we have a new wrinkle. Right up on the podium is the timer that I showed you. It's going to be set and ready for every speaker to push. They just have one job before starting their speech, and that's to press start. However, if they do go over their 5-minute time allotment or don't press that button, we might have some, well, let's call them incentives for some of our speakers. Speakers, you might now be wondering what those special incentives are. And when you agreed to those terms, and all I'm going to say is, our disclosure email was pretty long, and I hope that you read all the way to the end of the fine print. They're nervous now. One last thing, I have a big ask of you tonight. This isn't your normal business event, so we want you to be loud. We want you to cheer, we want you to clap and root on our speakers tonight. So let's try that out. Can I get a big round of applause for all of our panelists? Woo! Yes, excellent. Okay, yeah, that's awesome. You all need your own walk-on music. Next time we're gonna have that. So now I would like to introduce our fantastic editor of the Business Record, whose team was integral in putting together today's lineup of speakers. She leads an award-winning paper. We have been recognized many, many times by our industry association. Our leader, Emily Barsky. Please give her the same big round of applause that we just heard. And you'll notice that we're wearing the moderator attire.
Awesome. Well, good evening, everyone. We are so excited for tonight's program. As Susanna mentioned, if you've been to the event before, you know that we like to poke fun at our stars just a little bit to make sure that they stay on time. Usually that's Chris Konetsky's job, but as we mentioned, he doesn't have a voice tonight, so not only do I get to poke some fun at them, but I'm also getting to poke some fun at Chris. So when each of the speakers come up, I'll introduce them, and I'm gonna give them that little friendly incentive if they go over their time. So let's go ahead and get started. First in our lineup is Jill Andersen. Jill is an entrepreneur, speaker, and coach who says her life was just okay until her shoulds hit the fan. And you can take a look at her ideas for more on that. Equipped with an MBA, a divorce, more than a few job changes, and some perspective, she describes herself now as sickeningly happy. She strives to inspire her audiences to live imperfectly and joyfully every day. And Jill, your incentive for going overtime is I get to write your next keynote speech. So good luck with that.
All right. Woo! Thank you. Joke's on you, I've got one tomorrow at noon. All right. My last name being Andersen, I've been training for this top of the alphabet moment since my very first kindergarten roll call. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you to the Business Record for the opportunity, and for all of you for taking time to be here tonight. So of my 10 ideas, 3 rose to the top for tonight's event. Number 1, stop shoulding yourself. If you say it fast, it sounds a little more fun. Number 2, perfect doesn't exist. And number 3, begin with your end in mind. And it may sound a little morbid, but I really do mean dying. Perfectionism and shoulding continuously demand us to live outside of ourselves. We're fed by best, consumed with comparison to how we think things should be or should look, or how we measure up to others and even former versions of ourselves, looking outside instead of in. We're clinging to this linear flight plan we created when setting our sights on our futures. Often, we begin plotting that flight plan before we're even old enough to have our pilot's license. When you created your flight plan, how old were you? Do you remember what your destination was? Did you know where you'd be refueling, where your connections were, and even what your ETAs were for each of those stops? I feel like I always had a flight plan, though I can't tell you exactly when I actually made it. I knew I'd go to college after high school, get married, have kids, and retire, live happily ever after, right? That was my long-haul flight plan. The regional routes of career, friendships, romantic relationships, to name a few, were all supported by my pre-flight checklists. I always had general deadlines for marriage and kids, and my career strategy continued to evolve as I did. Strategic deliverables, leadership opportunities, corporate ladders, even the individual projects that supported those were part of the plan. Now you can thank Top Gun Maverick for this aviation analogy. I saw it last week, still a little obsessed. Now if you've seen the movie, and even if you haven't, there's a scene where a bunch of birds interfere with the fighter jets while they're in the middle of an enemy conflict, of course. So the birds hit the plane, the engines blow, crisis ensues. It's a really big turning point in the movie, as you can imagine. Bird strike, that's what they called it. Now, I was a textbook pilot following my perfect flight plan, and I was pretty happy with my life. I'd gone to college, I'd got my master's degree, I had great jobs, and was married. Until age 32, when the flock of fear, the perfectionist parrots, and the disoriented dodo birds attacked. Bird strike. After 2 miscarriages and a 2-year marriage, I found myself divorced. Birds were crapping all over my flight plan and my aircraft. Feathers were flying everywhere. I couldn't see squat. I had 1 engine on the fritz, and it took everything I had to keep the plane under control. I was in a tailspin for the first time.
Now, there are countless stories of heroism and bravery in times of tragedy, people explaining they don't have any fear in the moment as they think with indescribable clarity in a crisis, crawl out of a crashed vehicle, or spring into action to save someone. Nothing wakes you up like knowing you're going to die. It's called mortality motivation. But how do you create that urgency when you and everyone you love is safe and healthy? Or going through what we often see as just the normal trials of life, like a divorce, average Jill problems, right? My tailspin wasn't that severe, gratefully, but it sure delivered clarity that I hadn't experienced before. It's the closest I'd come to mortality motivation. I realized I'd been asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking others, where should I go? What should I do? I started asking myself, how do I want to be? How do I want to experience this one shot at human life? I chose to be a super aunt instead of feeling I should have kids of my own. I chose a man who supports me in being the very best version of myself. I even asked him to marry me, and he said yes. I chose to do a 180 and do work that feeds my soul, instead of feeling like I should keep climbing the corporate ladder, even though I was doing very, very well. I had way more choices than I recognized, and I finally grasped that my fulfillment was on me. Now, my invitation to you is to imagine the moment. You're in the cockpit, the alarms are going off. Hey, just like that. And you're going down. This is it. This is perfect timing. This is it. You're dying. You're dying. Are you agonizing about your should-haves, or are you at peace with how you piloted your one shot at human life? And as I make my final approach for landing, I hope that you'll remember that life, my friends, is not about the perfect flight plan or about the fanciest, most high-tech aircraft. It's about how you, the pilot, choose to fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. What I'm gathering from that is the next time somebody tells you you should have done something, you have the right to say, you've got to be shoulding me, right? Okay.
They go on forever.
Exactly. All right, next we have Tony Coleman, President and CEO of Broadlawns Medical Center. He joined the organization in December after most recently serving as Vice President of Operations and Assistant Hospital Administrator for San Bernardino, California-based health system. Having grown up in a blue-collar neighborhood of Los Angeles, Coleman's initial goal as a 17-year-old leaving home was to pay for college through the Navy and the GI Bill. He instead went on to earn his officer's commission and serve as a naval healthcare administrator. He retired from the Navy in 2016 after a 20-year naval career. And that military career will hopefully come in handy for your incentive. If you go overtime, you owe us 500 push-ups.
Oh boy, this is, okay, just press start, there we go. Okay, so first of all, I just want to take a moment and really just talk about how exceedingly humbled I am to be here and be in such great company. And then I want to say, Jill, I'm going to get you for going before me. That was an awesome 5 minutes. That was awesome. There are 4 of my 10 ideas that come to mind, and they all center around diversity. And when I think about the role that diversity has played in my life thus far, I think way back to growing up in Los Angeles, California. On my street, there was an African-American family, there was a Chinese family, Philippine family, Egyptian family, white family, Hispanic family. So diversity is something that I just became aware of, or that I was introduced to before I even became aware of it. And that was an innovative way to grow up. And so then I joined the Navy, and if you can imagine a 17-year-old from Los Angeles going to Chicago in December, right? Okay? I'll never forget when the plane landed and we got off the plane in the vestibule and I inhaled and I literally felt the cold air go in my nostrils and down into my lungs and I wanted to go home. But it was too late at that point. And so I find myself in this room with 82 other Americans from every state in the United States, all 50 states and Puerto Rico. And we had to live together and learn about the Navy for 2.5 months before we went off to go wherever the Navy thought we should go. And so I learned a lot. Many of those folks I still talk to today. And throughout the course of my career in the military, I found myself in different duty stations or on a ship where I didn't know anyone. But the common thread that we had was diversity. And so sometimes I found myself with a bunkmate that I probably didn't get along with, but I had to find some type of common ground. So a quote from Abraham Lincoln came to mind. Abraham Lincoln said, "I do not like that man. I must get to know him better." And so when I think about those experiences in the military and being together with 500 or 600 people, we literally depended on each other to live and survive and make it back home. That diverse group of people, I had to get to know each one of those individuals. And in order for me to get to know them, I had to learn what was important to them. It could have been their family back home, it could have been their girlfriend, it could have been their baseball card collection. But I had to get to know something about them or something that was important to them. And so as I went on in my career, I learned that diversity breeded innovation. Some of our best ideas, some of the best thoughts, some of the best successes that I've managed to have in my career have been because I had a diverse team or I was a part of a diverse team. And the same holds true today in my current role. In my business of healthcare, people die every day. And so we absolutely must put our best foot forward. And I'm human, and I'm a guy. So I will never know what it's like to be a female. I will never know what it's like to go through what females go through. But as a CEO of an organization that cares for females, it is absolutely critical that I have a diverse team at every level. Diverse leadership team, all the way down to the bottom level. And so when I arrived, just by chance, there were no females on my leadership team. So I had to own that. I had to confess that I knew that was the situation and that I was gonna fix it. And we did. And we have some very talented people on our team that just happen to be women. So I can tell you in the 9 months that I've been, or 10 months that I've been at Broadlawns, it seems like 10 years, but in the 10 months that I've been at Broadlawns, having a diverse team, including women, including individuals from different nationalities, including people from different generational stages in life, that has been the fuel for us to have some bright ideas and really look at how to tackle some of the health issues that our community faces and really improve the health status of the community. So I want to end by saying that diversity breeds innovation. If you don't have a woman on your team, get one on your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Our next speaker is Miriam Erickson Brown, who began her career at Andersen Erickson Dairy in the marketing department of the company founded by her grandfather. She has held various positions at AE and reported to her father for many years. In 2006, she was named president and CEO. As CEO of AE Dairy, Miriam has focused on building upon the strong legacy of commitment to quality and excellence. Miriam has invested much of her career representing independently owned dairies through leadership on dairy industry boards. And Miriam, your incentive is if you go over your time, you owe all of us free milk.
Can the combination of smooth AE French onion dip and a crisp, salty potato chip represent happiness? Can a recipe of cream, eggs, vanilla, and nutmeg packaged up in a quart and called AE Eggnog become a well-loved family holiday tradition? It can, in my world of dairy, and it's the very best part of my career. The emotional and nostalgic connections our almost century-old dairy has with Iowa families is an inspiration and the purpose of our work at AE Dairy. Through the highs and the lows and all of the challenges of bringing a perishable product to market, the love we get from our customers motivates us and encourages us every single day. When you think about it, there's a great amount of trust in the relationship our customers have with our dairy. And that's something we don't take for granted and we are very grateful for. The underlying theme behind our work at AE, as well as the theme behind each and every product we make, is an uncompromising focus on excellence. For example, French onion dip. It's made with hours fresh cream from Iowa Family Farms, and it passes a battery of sensory and laboratory tests. The sour cream goes through a culturing and a cooking process to achieve just the right silky texture and a clean taste. And this happens no matter the time, the day, or what's going on in the world. It is a consistent goal, and every distraction does not change that goal or the truth that our work matters. Our family dairy has taught me so much about focusing on excellence and seeking transformation in all areas of my life. I've learned that working with excellence comes from the heart and encompasses all of who we are. Giving the best of ourselves is very personal, and it provides purpose and a reason to continually hone our gifts and talents. Focusing on excellence also reveals where improvements are needed and begins the process of transformation. So excellence and transformation, if they were to get into a relationship, I think it would go really well because they bring out the best in each other. Creating and making dairy products is a combination of art and science. And like life, it is extremely unpredictable. That's why we have to push ourselves every single day at AE Dairy, because if we do what is comfortable or natural, our standard of excellence will begin to soften. One of the practices we have every single week is conducting a taste test each Thursday. At Taste Test, members of our family, along with key managers who are responsible for making, creating, packaging, distributing, and selling AE products, sit at a long table, and we open packaging, and we test inner seals, and we observe the texture and the ratio of cream to fruit to seasonings and ingredients, and we taste a sample of every single product and every single flavor packaged the prior week. Competitive products are also brought in each and every week, and we taste them right next to ours. We do this because we've all got a little bit of ownership in our work, and that can be a comfortable place. In reality, our own opinions need to be reframed and challenged, and often. Depending on what the results are in our taste tests, sometimes we make adjustments, and sometimes, I gotta tell you, we just celebrate the flavors of 3 European cocos and AE chocolate milk. But each week we repeat our taste test process all over again. You know, it requires constant discipline to put our energy behind learning, growing, improving, and soaring instead of seeking comfort. But the risk of not doing these things is mediocrity. Comfort is for mattresses. My prayer for you tonight is that you would experience the joy and fulfillment of living with excellence, and that you would seek transformation so that you may become the person God ultimately designed you to be, and in doing so, you would make a difference in your life. And while you're at it, don't forget to drink your AE milk.
Awesome. Excellence and transformation, just like sour cream and onion, am I right? All right, Geoff Graham is responsible for all global breeding activities at Corteva Agriscience. The breeding team is focused on clear local product delivery targets with local accountability and decision-making, while leveraging global technologies and ideas to improve practices to all Corteva breeding programs worldwide. He is a member of the R&D leadership team. In 2000, Geoff joined DuPont Pioneer as a research scientist aimed at incorporating new technologies into breeding. He's held numerous roles over the years. And Geoff, your incentive is, if you go over your time, you've got to name a new seed after me.
I can see a corn hybrid named after you right now. So for those of you who don't know, Corteva is the company that owns Pioneer right now, and so Pioneer up in Johnston. And so, and if you don't know Pioneer and you're from Iowa, well, let's have a conversation afterwards. But maybe to think about Pioneer, you know, if you drive down the interstate or you drive down a highway, probably 1 out of every 3 cornfields or 1 out of every 3 soybean fields is something that Corteva produced. And my research group is the group that actually makes the new varieties and hybrids that Corteva makes. And so what I want to do today is talk a little bit about my job, and then talk about an experience that I had, and then finish up with a story on my job that tries to combine a couple of the different points that we wrote down today. So again, I lead a team of about 2,000 people. We're in like 30 different countries, and you know, it's a big global group. And again, the intent is to create the next hybrid that we're going to name after you, or the next cotton variety, or the next soybean variety that we go through. And it really is this interesting part about just the global nature of the job, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to see different parts and different cultures of our world. So that's my job. So let me just take a step back and tell you a personal story. So I am a first-generation immigrant to the U.S., and this is the part that we're going to have a very tight story, Tony, about our experiences, okay? So, you know, my parents were Australian, and when I was 3 years old, they moved from Australia to Colombia, South America. Okay, so we lived down there until we were 14, and if people paid attention during that time frame, Colombia started selling a lot of drugs. It got pretty dangerous, and we immigrated to the U.S. at that point in time. So here was this little 14-year-old Latino boy who had all of the scene was the tropics of Colombia, and we moved to Minnesota. I have never been as cold in my life than a June day in Minnesota, right, when we moved up there. And then when we moved in and winter came around, I remember the first time that you know, I went out to the school bus and my hair froze, and I thought, oh my God, what is happening? But maybe the biggest cultural shock that I actually had was, if you're a little Latino boy or growing up in Colombia, you know, you're going around, you're hugging, you're kissing people on the cheek, all that's how you grew up. And I came to Minnesota. We might be too close right here for our personal space, right? And it was this huge, huge interaction, or thing that I had to learn about how culture and language actually was different between the words that we were using in common, but the meanings were really different. And after about 6 months of being at home alone, I finally realized when people in Minnesota said, we'll have to get together, it meant goodbye. This conversation's over, right? So, okay, so life experience, the importance of language to go through. So let's come back to my job and what I do. And so I started growing in the organization, as we talked about. I started off as a scientist, and I started taking on other responsibilities in the organization, and my position grew in influence. And one of the most amazing things was the number of silos that you actually see as you grew in the organization. And I started to realize that really those silos were a bit of the history of the organization, but not our future. And in order to break down some of those silos, you had to start thinking about a different future that you could put together. And so in this, one of the best experiences of my career, we took this international group of top talent in the organization. And again, this was going back to my job and thinking about, who could come and attend. It was really a global effort that I thought brought the diversity of thought and really made this a worthwhile project. But after 9 months of working this, we ended up with two really important things. We ended up with a playbook to say, how are we going to revolutionize our product development plan? And that playbook was a really important thing to go to, right? So we had it. But perhaps, most of all, the most important part is now we had that common language that we could all talk about because we developed it together and we had the same meanings between each of the things that we're talking about. And that allowed us to continue to say how we're going to build this thing forward. Now, it's great to have this global vision, and we talk about this all the time, about thinking globally and acting locally. But really, the other part to enable that global vision to take place is that you had to enable the local teams to make the decision. And I think it's so important in organizations to really think about the people who have the information to make the right decisions, and then empowering them to go do that piece. And so, to me, that has been one of the most meaningful parts of my career, is that it's not only enough to think about that common vision, but developing that common language and enabling the teams to go out and turn that vision into something that actually makes a difference for us every single day. So thank you.
Awesome. And you all heard it, and we're recording this. He's going to name a seed after me. Our next speaker is also named Geoff, different spelling. Geoff Johnson was named president and CEO of the ISU Alumni Association in September 1999. He has more than 35 years of higher education experience. Geoff oversees all Alumni Association programs and publications, is secretary to the Stanton Memorial Carolyn Foundation, an ex officio member and officer to the Alumni Association Board of Directors, a member of the President's Cabinet, and the Alumni Association's liaison to the university and its affiliate organizations. In 2015, he became the association's inaugural Lora and Russ Talbot Endowed President and CEO. And Geoff, your incentive is, if you go over time, you're going to have to comp me for my membership.
Well, I'm going to share with you that tonight I dedicate everything that I'm about to say to my mom and dad, who I lost in 2016, 16 days apart. And what's left is what my father said more so than not, and that was the most important thing he could give his children were a conscience. Now, I have to be honest with you, my dad talked a lot. If you talk to my staff, they will tell you, I talk a lot. But I'm also the alumni director, so we believe in audience participation. So I want you to raise your left hand, all fingers out, and I'll tell you what this all means at the end. This is my dad talking. The thumb is pointing to you. That's whatever faith you have. In my household, it was Jesus Christ. Secondly, on the next finger, he would say, this is your spouse or your partner. Next would be your best friend, and you're going to only have one best friend. Next, he would say, these are your children, in some cases, maybe your pets. But this last one would be your parents or your grandparents. Make a fist, and who covers them? And when everything else is over, this is what's left. You come here, on this right hand, there are only two fingers that should exist. Those would be your coworkers and your acquaintances. And your job as a man, as a father, as a husband, is to make sure that those two fingers never make it over to your left hand. What do we call that today? Work-life balance. So I share with you tonight as we speak of this, these key 7 relationships I learned from my dad. Only 2 relationships are on the right hand, as I mentioned. Don't ever allow those relationships to get on your left hand. Next is raise your children with luggage, not baggage. What was so important in these conversations with my dad, and they were not comfortable conversations, is he would never answer questions that we asked, which were, tell us more about your life. So you'll read later on tonight, when you have a chance to go through the things that I have shared with you, his most important message he left with us was that if I give you every story of my life, you will soon learn that you're growing up in a different America than I grew up in. And one thing that I have to do is to not limit your dreams, your options, or your risk-taking. He would say to me today if he was here, I prepared you to be in Iowa. It's colder than it was in Mississippi, and it's whiter than it was in Mississippi. I end with, like oil and water, praise and criticism can never mix. My staff would tell you I'm very good at seeing what wasn't done or could have been done better. What was that? But it took a staff member being willing to tell me, let us finish the project first and then tell us what we could have done better. So like oil and water don't mix, criticism and praise doesn't either. We should give our staffs the opportunity to finish their projects, bask in the opportunity and the glow of a job well done, and wait for the briefing session to offer any feedback. So as you go through these tonight, think of my dad, the many moments that I had to sit in front of him and be forced to listen, but learn that as I've grown up, I have a conscience, and I had an incredible, incredible father. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoff. I know your father would be very proud of those remarks. In March of last year, Sara Kurovski was named the new president and CEO of Make-A-Wish Iowa. She is the mayor of Pleasant Hill, and when first elected in 2013, she was the youngest and first woman to hold the role. She was a member of our 2015 40 Under 40 class and as our emerging woman of influence in that same year. She's involved with several regional committees and associations. And Sara, your incentive is if you go over your time, I get to be mayor for a day, and I think everybody in Pleasant Hill deserves free pizza. Good luck getting that in the budget. Okay, let's go. For those of you who don't know me, I like to get shit done. So, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm going to focus on one item that I have had ideas about, and we've implemented both in my role as mayor and as CEO at Make-A-Wish. This idea, if we all work on it in our own workplaces, could have an impact on what is equated as $193 billion in losses from workers not working on the job every year in the US. So, I'm slightly competitive, let's get to work. So, while we're sitting here, and I've been watching you, raise your hand if you've been checking work emails, if you are thinking about the work you have to do when you get home, if you're gonna work when you get home, if you're gonna get up tomorrow morning and go back to work, if you're thinking about quarterly financials, the money you need to raise, the employees you need to hire, fire. Okay, great, burnout, excellent. On the other side of our brain, we're thinking about the birthday presents we have to buy, the friend who's getting a divorce, a friend who's getting married, a family member who's sick. It never ends. What does this have to do with us and lost wages, and how can we help it and our employees? It's, of course, mental health and normalizing it, and we have got to do it as leaders.
So with my mayor hat and working with the brilliant people we have at the City of Pleasant Hill, we produced a new benefit that we have rolled out first and foremost for our first responders. So fire and police, everyone from the top to the bottom. Already they get an annual physical, no problem, great. Guess what we now include every single year at no cost to them? A mental health check-in. It is normalized, it is there for every single one. They go and do it every year because guess what? If they are physically healthy and strong and mentally healthy and strong, they can be at work and be there for each and every single one of you in the moment you need them the most. I don't know about you, but I want our first responders prepared and ready when we all need them. At Make-A-Wish, Iowa, we had come up with a new policy, especially with the work that we do and the employees that we have. They deal with a lot. They come close with our children and their families, and when loss occurs, it can be devastating to team members. So this year, as a new benefit, we also included a new wellness package and working with Good Life Therapy out in West Des Moines. So every team member gets a mental health therapy session. They can do it in person or virtual if they don't live locally at no cost to them. Of course, we made sure that Good Life Therapy accepted multiple insurances, so should a team member want to go there, they could keep going back. Next, we have different sessions scheduled with Good Life Therapy coming into the office to talk as a team about burnout, being mentally strong and building that mental resilience, and of course, compassion fatigue. If you don't know about that, look it up. It's very similar to what we experience when we think we're having burnout, but it's different. So by training everyone, talking about it, hopefully we will have team members who are ready to go every day for our families when we need them the most. So what are all of you doing? How are you managing your mental health? I saw everybody's arms up in the air. For me, it's exercising, reading, traveling, vodka and whiskey. Maybe don't think about those last ones. Do as I say, not as I do. But I encourage you, take this back. Make it normal. We have made it normal. We all do it. I stood in front of my team and said, I went to a session. It was amazing. You're going to love it. So join me. Let's bite into this massive loss that we are seeing nationally every single year. And maybe we can be a leader in Iowa and say, we don't have that anymore. So maybe this time, instead of not do as I say, maybe actually do that. Thank you.
Awesome. Under time. So unfortunately, Pleasant Hill, no pizza for you. Siobhan Spain has over 20 years experience in arts administration, including managing Site Santa Fe, the studio office of MacArthur Fellow Tom Joyce and Mary Goldman Gallery. She has served in committee and board roles for the Center for Contemporary Arts Santa Fe, Santa Monica Museum of Art, the Des Moines Art Center, Des Moines Public Art Foundation, the Los Angeles Times Foundation, and Women, Food, and Agriculture Network. She returned to her Iowa farm in 2009 and now oversees what is slated to be the largest nonprofit art studio building in the nation in Mainframe Studios. And your incentive for going over your time speaking is I get to repaint the outside of Mainframe if you do.
Oh, I love it. Hello. I'm really grateful to be here and for the opportunity to share my insights. And with you all in particular, let me explain. I grew up in a deeply creative family of farmers here in Iowa. So from the womb, you might say I have had a front row seat to the arts. And as the youngest of 7 and a quiet observer, I saw a need. When I went to the University of Iowa, my fellow business school classmates heading to Arthur Andersen at the time were perplexed by my intent on using my education in the arts. I'm getting to the age that I can say, back then, the arts and business were more opposed than oil and water. Since then, I have been gathering experience in Santa Fe, in Los Angeles, and now back in Des Moines that support my youthful foresight that artists are worth investing in for a more dynamic future. My capable allies at Americans for the Arts and Bravo Greater Des Moines are making the case that arts mean business. And not too long ago, National Endowment for the Arts cited that the value added to gross domestic product by arts and culture production is nearly 5 times greater than that of the agriculture sector. How do you like those apples? I love that stat. And it's also lots more than construction, transportation, and warehousing. Let me clarify that these efforts are to get the business world's attention to an opportunity. And let me also take a moment that I zero in on working artists versus the arts as a whole. I always have, and that's been my life's charge. A great example of what I mean is Mainframe Studios. For those who don't know, there is a very colorful building just blocks from here that provides affordable workspace to working artists. The nonprofit, thank you. The nonprofit I have led since its physical existence operates at 100% capacity, and it has a wait list of 100 applicants. There are 133 studios now, which will increase to 180 by the end of this year. 70 of them operate as small businesses. Others operate as nonprofits, as part-time gig workers, as cooks, and everything in between. Creative business owners move here to be part of what we're doing because it's unlike anything else in the nation. I am here to tell you that there's an opportunity for the taking. In fact, there are hundreds of them just down the street. Cities build Taj Mahals to house artworks, develop gorgeous performance centers, sculpture parks, cultural festivals. Does this sound familiar? It should. We have the best of the best. Let me ask you this. Who makes those artworks? Who composes those ballets? Who writes those plays, designs those costumes, and sings those songs? Artists and their work are the reason for that impressive GDP. Why not see them for who they are? They're like you and me, wanting to do their part in making this city the best it can be. I'm gonna hurry up my speed here. So let me circle back here to standing by my words of wisdom for local leaders. Recognize the talent among us and value creativity. I hear of challenges of attracting and retaining talent. Well, I don't know that myself at Mainframe, the aforementioned stats, but I do know that Mainframe can be a beacon. If these past years have taught me anything, is to look within for the change you want to see happen. There are resources right under our noses ready to be seen, ready to help foster a future that expands and deepens the greatness of our community. These artists that I speak of are working at Wells Fargo, at Nationwide, and the Business Record. They are also teaching our children on our school boards, running nonprofits, making our food and performing at our events. They also come in all shapes and sizes and expertise. Take Natalie and Gretchen, who showcase clothing lines that are mindful of our environment. Tone, the move maker, inspiring young people to follow their passions. Marion Niemer, who sells ceramics at Allspice. Kim Goldberg, who is weaving international goodwill through her art. Josh Larson, who uses gaming to connect the world in ways we didn't know that was possible. Take Jill Wells, who does everything to make Des Moines a more beautifully inclusive. Why should businesses care? Because artists are here and everywhere, contributing to the GDP in a big way, and they are open for business. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Brian Waller is the president of the Technology Association of Iowa, and he believes that every Iowa company is a technology company. Brian previously held positions as the executive director for the Des Moines Downtown Chamber of Commerce and manager of business development for the Iowa Economic Development Authority. He also serves on the board of directors of the Technology Councils of North America and Iowa Public Radio, in addition to serving on the Governor's STEM Council and the Empower Rural Iowa Committee. He was a member of our 2017 40 Under 40 class. And Brian, your incentive, if you go over time, we're forcing you to go back to dial-up internet for a week.
They say that in your 20s and in your 30s, you're creating the life to live in your 40s and beyond. So for me, at 42 years old, 20 years in the Des Moines business community, to be standing in front of you with these panelists, I have to pinch myself. So thanks so much to the Business Record for this opportunity. This is cool. Thank you so much. I'm going to share with you what I've learned over the last 20 years in my journey in my business career. And I'm also going to focus on my last 8 years as being president of the Technology Association of Iowa. My first idea for you is through absence comes opportunity. Through absence comes opportunity. I learned this 20 years ago. Graduated college, moved to Des Moines. What's the first thing you do when you graduate college? You get a job. What's the second thing you do? You get with some buddies and you start a band. And that's what I did. And so we'd have band practice. I'm 22 years old in Des Moines. We'd have band practice twice a week. And I would get so pissed off when someone would call in sick, flake out on band practice. We have to cancel practice. That's it. The drummer's not showing up tonight. But I learned through absence comes opportunity. Because when the drummer didn't show up, I got to hear the bass player's lines. He's got some good licks. I got to hear the vocalist. Well, I didn't know you were singing that lyric. So through the absence of a person in your life should come opportunity. In today's world of employment musical chairs, it can be easy to get deflated when someone leaves, quits, or just doesn't show up for your organization. However, just like when you remove a big tree in the forest, other trees around it can grow. So embrace the idea that through absence comes opportunity. Another thing I learned about 12 years ago is to have older friends. Have older friends. I would not suggest this to give to high school students, but for you, have older friends. So often we focus on the youth, engaging the next generation. I've selected to have older friends in my life purposely. They have not read the entire book of life, but they are a few chapters ahead for you. I have gained such knowledge by befriending people 5, 10, 20, even 40 years older than me. Not a mentor, that's transactional. Have older friends to learn from. The next thing, I remember a time and a theme called Iowa Nice. I don't think it exists anymore like it did. A lack of civility is festering in our community and throughout our institutions. Let's speak kinder to each other with empathy and the open mind of the uniqueness of the human journey. Let's have Iowa lead the way to cancel culture. Let's be a community of redemption and restoration, because if it were not for second chances, we would all be alone. In my 8 years at the Technology Association of Iowa, there's something growing, and that is every organization and company in Iowa is a technology company. You must think of yourself that way. It doesn't matter anymore what industry sector you're in. Technology is the economic driver of our economy right now. Your organization is a digital entity. Think about how your customers and your employees are communicating and interacting in that digital space. You are in a digital transformation right now. It is complex, but you are in the midst of it. Think of yourself as a technology company. Next, protect your tech. Protect your tech. We live in a digital environment. Cybersecurity threats will only increase in the future. How do you protect your highly sensitive data for your organization? What about your service providers? I challenge you to educate yourself on where your data exists and who has access to it. Think about that new cool app you downloaded. Did you read the terms of agreement and what they have access to on your phone? So protect your tech. And finally, I'll leave you with this. Use technology for good in this world. We've all been shopping on, say, a Monday night for some shoes, let's say. You X out of that website. On Friday, you're on a different website, and those shoes appear on the corner of your website to remind you. What is that? It's artificial intelligence and machine learning. So let's use tech for good in our society. The exciting part of being in the tech industry is the awesome power to leverage technology to solve social problems. So now is the time to harness the profound capabilities of artificial intelligence and machine learning for background checks on gun purchases and red flag warnings. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And last but certainly not least, we have China Wong, the owner of Salon Spa W in the East Village, which Elle magazine named one of the top 100 salons in the country. She's on the historic East Village's Neighborhood Association board, and she was also a member of our 2017 40 Under 40 class and was the Woman Business Owner of the Year that year as well. And China, your incentive, if you go over your time, I get to cut your hair.
All right, guys. So I'm coming in last here, so we're going to keep this short and sweet. I'm going to start with some fun facts for you. So the average tennis point is less than 10 seconds. The average gymnastics routine, less than 90 seconds. So what do both of these sports have in common? Well, you got to have flexibility. You have to have short, explosive amounts of energy and strength. I know about this because I spent most of my youth traveling across the country, competing in such venues. So much of my time that I actually moved to a boarding school, sports boarding school in Florida to finish my training. But what I want to talk about today isn't actually about achievement. It's about what happens in the absence thereof. It's about what happens when you spend your time doing something that you might not be great at. So as an adult, I decided that I wanted to become a long-distance runner. And let me tell you about my journey to running. It's been a tough one. And some of my team's here, and they're laughing because they know how bad I am about it. So I'm going to share some fun facts about me and my lack thereof of running skills. You see, I'm a reluctant distance runner to start with. I'm not cut out for endurance sports. My previous athletic endeavors all took less than 90 seconds. I run literally as fast as I have to run to be not walking. No, truly. My team, if they know I have a race, will send me memes of people speed walking in awkwardly short shorts. And to top it all off, guys, I am 5'3" 3/4. I like to round that up to 5'4", but who's counting? Not me. And I have legs like a corgi, not like a gazelle. And I actually wore workout clothes today because I'm going to show you my gait when I run because I hope it'll bring you guys all a good giggle. My staff actually does little presentations of me running to really get me going to tease me. But here we go, all right? All right, I had to show you my bad running and that I could still do a cartwheel. I swear I was a gymnast and athletic when I was young. All right, cartwheels, this is getting entertaining, right? You're like, where's she gonna go next? Okay, on a serious note though, you see my idea for you today isn't about being good at something. It's about the power of engaging in activities that you don't do well. So running obviously is very humbling for me. I'm gonna go ahead and coin my phrase. It's a humility hobby. I'm out of breath from my run.
Again, it's a humbling hobby, people. So my humility hobby, it's tested my resolve. It's taught me about control and ego. Struggling with something regularly like that has also strengthened my level of patience and compassion for others, especially when they are struggling with something. You know, we're all wired to stay in these positive feedback loops, right? We do something well, we get good feedback, and we do more of it. And I would challenge you, what would happen if you did something that you weren't naturally good at, right? Something that wasn't a strength or an area of expertise. What would happen if you chose at least one hobby that is out of your comfort zone? And what would your humility hobby be? Like, think about that. Painting with watercolors? Learning to play an instrument? Writing poetry? Joining a swim team? What about taking up public speaking? I mean, who would want to do that, right? And don't do public speaking and try and run. So what would you learn about yourself, about others? It's my hope in our communities that we seek to understand others, especially those that are different from us, that we shift perspectives and that we raise empathy. Perhaps taking up a humility hobby will do just that. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, China. I'll have to check with Chris, but I think that may be our first cartwheel at 90 Ideas. We have just a little bit of time left for our Q&A portion, so I'm going to ask some brief questions, and I'll ask our panelists to be brief in their responses. We may have time for an audience question too, so if somebody has one, be thinking of it after my first question here. So as China was just talking about there are often, a lot of you all mentioned things that have worked really well, and I wonder if some of you might talk about something that hasn't worked so well for you and what you learned from it. So Jill, you're closest to me, you spoke the first, so I'm gonna make you go first.
Hi, hello, okay. I would say a lot of it is just having the courage to do something new. As an entrepreneur, especially a solopreneur, you find your own systems. You're learning all the things that talk about humility. That's just keeping something running. So I think the part that's challenging is discerning what is new and what is learning and what is something that truly doesn't work for you. So that's where a lot of at least for me, it's the going within and really being honest with myself. Am I throwing a fit because this is hard and I'm learning, or is it something that just isn't for me? Mm-hmm. So kind of hard to tell you why, because it's something new or it's something unique for everyone, but that's what I would say.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? Something that you've learned from? No?
I didn't hear you.
Sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, I was just going to say, does anyone else want to weigh in on something you've learned from? Yeah.
Okay. Oops. In the nonprofit world, you are trained to think that you've got to do everything to save money. And through doing Mainframe Studios by myself for 3 years, before hiring anybody, you don't save money by doing everything yourself. You compromise a lot and you get burnt out, and it's not worth it. So our nonprofit leaders need more support to do it well and be out in the public and share why we're doing what we're doing and connect with one another. So yes, invest in yourself and others to help you out.
Awesome. Does anyone in the audience have a quick question they want to ask? There's a microphone coming to you.
This question is for Sara. Yes. Sara, this question is for you. With the mental health, and a lot of employers, they're cutting down on their benefits. How is it that this benefit I know it's important, but yet nobody wants to do it.
We got it done because I said we have to do it for our people, period. There's no other choice. So it starts with the leaders at the top deciding what is important and what's not. We didn't get rid of anything else. We didn't cut anything else. We said we know what we are losing if they don't have help when they need it the most.
Employees are concerned that the information that they're going to tell this mental health professional will leak, and maybe their job or their career is at stake because of what they might be going through. So what's the protection that they may get from that information that they're giving out?
Right, so we don't follow up, we don't call anyone, and you can't. There's this thing called HIPAA. And then I remind everyone, do you have a smartphone? Do you have an Alexa? They know more about you and your private world than we will ever know. And so when you get real with someone about how this is working, why this is important, and guess what? They don't have to do it. We don't force anyone to do it. It is an option, and we make it available for everyone to normalize it.
Tony, I want to ask this question of you. What's one of the best traits that you think a leader has?
One of the best traits that I think a leader has is the ability to inspire their people. I think sometimes, well, I'll say this, I am my own worst enemy. And so each of you are your own worst enemy. So a lot of times, we don't think we can do something, we really can. Or we show up and we don't feel like we belong. It's a psychological phenomenon called imposter syndrome. And so for me, one of the best traits that a leader can have is to be inspirational and to show their team member or their employee who they are from a different lens. I always tell people, if you could only see yourself the way others see you. And I think that's our goal as leaders. I think folks that are in positions are there because they're qualified and because they can do it. And as a leader, my job is to remove all barriers, be they physical or mental, to help you, to help demonstrate that you can do the job that we've asked you to do. So for me, I think that trait would be inspiration and also saving on the budget.
Did you have to say that last part?
I did. And I have more to say too, but I won't, I'll just.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on core leadership traits that they think leaders need?
Well, I listed this in my list of 10 ideas, and that was the best gift that I gave myself. Sometimes you have to remember your journey to leadership. And for most of us, we were doing our jobs well and got promoted. And the thing that was missing is that no one taught us how to lead people. We knew how to lead and do programs. And so my 360 was very, very important to me because it taught me the power of true listening. And I think a leader that knows how to listen will know what questions to ask. But more importantly, recognize that most of the time when our staff are talking with us, they're generally sharing with us. They're not asking any questions. And we find ourselves, just as we do as parents, in a mode of fixing things when no one is asking something to be fixed. Sometimes it's just sharing. And so I think learning how to truly listen, and that's an art, not a skill.
You know, it's interesting you say that, and you talk about children. I learned that from my daughter when she was a teenager. She would come home and want to talk. We would talk about her day, and she would want to talk about what happened and the girls that didn't like her, she didn't like. And the fatal mistake that I made was giving my opinion or telling her that, you know, maybe she was in the wrong and the other girl was in the right, because then automatically I wasn't on her side. So I learned to ask, especially when an employee comes to you and they may be kind of heated or emotional about something that's going on, I've learned to ask, when appropriate, is this a conversation where you just want me to listen, or do you want my opinion? And it works. It works. And if you do it enough, you'll build that relationship and you'll build that trust, and you won't have to ask, you'll just know. I just asked one of my coworkers that yesterday. We were having a conversation, and I said, is this a conversation where you want me to listen, or you just, or you want my opinion? At first, she said she just wanted me to listen, but then afterwards, she asked for my opinion, so appreciate it.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more audience question if someone has one.
Okay, so maybe not so much of a question, but I'm going to try and touch on each of you as far as comments and thoughts that I had, as each of you were speaking. Start with Jill. Amazing. I get the feeling, you have an amazing big heart, and you've dealt with a lot of controversy in your life, and I applaud you for coming through the way you have. Tony, you've done a lot of great things in your life. I definitely appreciate what you've done as far as service to our country. Thank you for that. Miriam, AE Chip Dip. Oh, wow. Where would we be without AE French onion dip, right? Geoff, I don't know beans about farming, but I applaud everything your company's done in leadership with agriculture. Thank you. Geoff, my dad died out of the blue when I was 23, so I can resonate with a lot of what you're saying about your appreciation of your mom and your dad, especially your dad. Thank you. Sara, going back a few years ago, we at Arion, I spearheaded, we overbuilt Pleasant Hill with fiber optic cable, and you probably don't remember me, but I worked closely with you, and you helped knock down a lot of barriers. Yeah, you don't remember me, but sorry, Ben. I love the arts. Just as importantly, you went to the University of Iowa, so huge Hawk fan. Go Hawks. Brian, Technology Association of Iowa, appreciate everything you've done for technology in the great state of Iowa. We're a proud member of the TAI group, and thank you. And China, the freaking cartwheel. I'm beyond words on how to, what to say about that. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Well, we're just about out of time, but I do want to give each of you a moment to just think of a quick 30-second soundbite that you can leave everybody with here tonight. So while they think of that, I'm going to share just a couple things. On October 13th, we've got a great panel of leaders who will take a look at the job market for 2023 and our virtual jobs outlook. In addition, we'll be honoring the 2022 Denton Davis Brown HR Professional of the Year to Monica Friedman, Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer at Life Care Services. Monica is joining us here tonight with her husband, Rob, and a large group of supporters from LCS. So let's give Monica a round of applause. And you can register for that event at businessrecord.com/events. If this is your first time attending a Business Record event, one of the best ways that you can stay connected with us is getting our daily newsletter, and you can sign up to get that at businessrecord.com/sign up. And of course, the best way to support us is to become a Business Record member to get our in-depth coverage and analysis from our staff. The 90 Ideas publication, which I know you all have in hand, has all 90 ideas in it, and it will be in this week's Business Record. And throughout the publication, you'll see some fantastic artwork that was created by local artist Lora Palmer, who's here tonight. A big thank you to Lora for developing unique pieces of art to represent each of the speakers' ideas and helping the publication look fantastic. Also, we will have videos from tonight, and you'll be able to find those at businessrecord.com/90 ideas. For those who are interested in how we select our panelists, we take a poll in the spring. We have a form that's open to folks, and you're welcome to submit nominations, and our team goes through those, as well as folks that we interact with from time to time, and choose our speakers. So look for that next spring. All right, so I want to get to each of you for one final nugget of wisdom that you want to share with everyone. And China, we'll start down your way and work this way.
I'll close with this. I encourage everybody to go home and think about what a humility hobby could be for you. Think about the empathy and ability to shift perspectives that it may bring you to bring our communities closer together and have more understanding from one another. Thank you.
Pass. I've always wanted to do that. Be nice to each other. Think of civility, and not just in the workplace, but on the interstate and waiting in line when it's a little too long. Give a little grace and forgiveness. Thanks.
Excellent. Des Moines is really known for appreciating the arts. People come visit and they are wowed by the arts and culture offerings that we have. I want our Iowa and Central Iowa to be known for the production of art, that people can come here and have a fertile ground for creativity, and that means integrating it into the community more. So get to know your fellow artists and how they can be a partner in making your goals, business goals, come true, and visit First Fridays at Mainframe. You can come down from 5 to 8 every first Friday of the month and experience the goodness that I have the luxury to experience every day.
One of my jobs we didn't talk about is my job as a mom. And so a little tip that I've been sharing, because apparently people have liked it, if you have kids and you know how obsessed they are with devices and screen time, I'm the mean mom, they have to get 10,000 steps before they get screen time. And then they said, well, what do you have to do before you have your glass of whiskey with Dad? And so now we have a rule. We all have to get our 10,000 steps every day.
Mine is very simple. Do a check on your conscience. What either scarred you or built you? And if you're not scarred, build your own set of conscience mechanisms. Create good memories for yourself so you can rest and be good to the people you work with and work for. Thank you.
A couple of years ago, I was out shoveling snow with my daughter and my dog didn't have its collar on, so she could have wandered anywhere she wanted to. And my daughter said to me, Dad, that dog is the dumbest dog in the world. It could be running away from us, running all over the neighborhood and going everywhere. And I said, Samantha, do you ever break the rules? She said, no, Dad, I never break the rules. And I just went, right, And I think it's important for all of us sometimes to look at those rules and challenge things so that we continue to grow and push the boundaries and we continue to develop. The real important rules, they'll come back and bite you. So when she took the car and she wasn't supposed to, she got punished. But she got a lot away with an awful lot of stuff. So I would challenge all of us to say, what are things that we just conform to and we don't challenge? And then look for ways in which we can do that constructively.
Have ridiculously high standards. Seek transformation, and remember that joy, like dairy products, is best when shared.
So, a couple of things. Number one, we all have stressful jobs, and I just want everybody to remember that after you're done working, when you've finished your job and you finish your contribution, you go home to your family, just remember they're the ones that believed in you and they're the ones that are going to be there after your job is done. And we had a saying in the Navy, when you die, the Navy's not going to be at your funeral crying over you, your family will be. So make sure that you embellish and you love your family and wipe your feet at the door. All the crap and all the stress that we pick up at work, when you get home, wipe your feet at the door. Don't put that on your family. Leave it at the door and love them.
Yes.
You did it. You got me. My bit of advice is to pay attention to how many times you say should and how many times you hear it. And if you're feeling hung up by a should that you're carrying around, I encourage you to think about it in terms of a could. shift that should to a could. What are your options? And then recognize how much choice you have and that the choice is ultimately yours.
Well, thank you all very much. You're very inspiring and funny. We appreciate you being here tonight. We know we're very lucky to have a great group of leaders spending time with us. As you all know, our goal is to help you do business better, and I hope that we in some way helped you do that tonight. Again, we want to thank our presenting sponsor, Denton Davis Brown, and supporting sponsor, Bank Iowa. And finally, let's give one more round of applause to our great set of panelists. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.